Welcome back to Season 5 of The Femsplainers. I'm Danielle Crittenden.
And I'm Christina Hoff-Sommers. That's not mine.
God.
That's mine. And it's a spam. It's not my fault. It's a spam risk.
This
It's a risk.
It's right at the beginning.
It's risk software.
Christina, you are so rusty.
It's risk software, and you should have it yourself. Let's continue as if nothing happened.
Oh, it's good to see you again. I missed you.
I missed you so much. I'm so glad you're back because now I can come out of my house.
I know. We connected. For those of you who aren't supporting us at Patreon or We Gather, you would have missed the one time we really were able to speak this summer, which was in August. But I was in Canada and you were in DC in your house. And we had a little catch up for that special episode for our subscribers. But yeah, I kind of got you to confess that you didn't really leave your house for 6 weeks.
It was so sublime. And I have a garden and I've got Izzy and there's a new dog next door. So there's a lot going on.
And but you did so I was in Canada. I was on the Great Lake of Ontario, and the one time you did really get out of your house was you did this recent...
I did a cruise with the National Review. I was a speaker on the cruise. We went from Montreal to Quebec to Charlottetown to a little town called Sydney.
Sydney, that's beautiful, Nova Scotia.
It wasn't actually that beautiful, but moving on. And then we went to Halifax, which was wonderful, and then to Bar Harbor and Boston. And it was beautiful. I went through the St. Lawrence Seaway. I still don't quite understand the mechanisms, but it was a great project in which you can take ships with cargo into the depths of the Great Lakes all the way from the Atlantic Ocean. So it was a huge achievement.
Well, our cottage is on Lake Ontario, and it eventually feeds into the St. Lawrence. And one day we took a little boating expedition down something called the Murray Canal, and it was what was there before there was the Seaway, and you weren't going to get a lot of big ships down that.
No.
It's now just used for tourism. It's about, 50 feet wide.
And if you look at a map, you have these Great Lakes, and it's not clear how you get from one to the other but they did it with locks and various things. And then you have this seaway, which looks like a little string, but they get massive ships down there through various...
Well, did you have any observations on my compatriots, the Canadians, or I guess the French Canadians you saw, and then you...
Well, some of the Canadian towns along the water it's charming, but it's like going back to 1962.
Right.
And you don't have a lot of development or contemporary architecture or jazzy cafes and things, but just a quiet kind of... It seems like there's some poverty in those areas.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Maritimes, I have not been there for a long, long time, but in contrast to Bar Harbor,
Bar Harbor
was
glitzy. Technicolor.
Yeah,
even the water was blue.
Right,
and I was very happy in Bar Harbor.
It has been very poor. I mean, it's still very fishing based, and the tourism isn't the same as what you get to the States. So it's actually quite a contrast. I remember thinking that Sydney and Halifax would be more like Bar Harbor than they ended up being.
Than they were. Although Halifax is a substantial city, and I went to the Citadel, which is a very impressive fort. And have you been there? Does every Canadian have to go visit?
No, I think in my childhood I saw all of these places, and I have not been back since, or not for many years. But
anyway, that was very, very good. And mainly, even though I was a shut-in, I read so many great books and got work done. And I read one book called The Club, which is about 18th century British culture, and basically, it's about Samuel Johnson and James Boswell and Edmund Burke and Edward Gibbon and Adam Smith, and they were all friends. And they met in this tavern called the Turk's Head just to have conversation. And they are all geniuses. And, of course, Samuel Johnson. I mean, what a character. And they just came alive. This book is by Leo Damrosch, and I listened to it on Audible. Mm-hmm. And I should be making ads for Audible. I download so many books from Audible, but this one I want you to read. And I love Samuel Johnson, although he did have a number of afflictions, like scrofulous and...
What is scrofulous?
I don't know.
It sounds
diseases
bad.
from the
Sounds
Middle
like
Ages and
something.
lumps and bumps and ticks. And also he was sexually bizarre, but repressed. So there's no bad activities. In fact, he used to rescue
he might
women.
be celebrated. He might become a letter himself.
He could. He would.
He might get a letter in the LP.
All his own
alphabet.
Whereas Boswell was just a hyperactive, narcissistic bounder who was seducing and kind of attacking every wench in sight. And then he would write about it.
Yeah.
He was completely honest. Anyway, the whole thing...
That was so before Me Too.
It was before Me Too, but I'm outing Boswell right now.
Well, we should. Can we
go
call
back
him up? Can we eliminate his canon? Can we? Well, I like that you aren't really into beach reads, Christina. That is your beach read.
No, it was brilliant, and I couldn't put it down. And now I'm reading a biography of Diderot, which is even more brilliant, and bringing that whole period alive. And the French encyclopédie, she wrote an encyclopedia. And the thing about his encyclopedia is that it was subversive in the sense that he would have links to other articles, to other entries in his encyclopedia, because it was just a compendium of all knowledge that he put together. And he would have a link, so it would be sort of the Eucharist, and he would have an entry, and then the link would be cannibalism.
Wait, what do you mean by a link? You mean a footnote?
Not a link. They would say, see also.
It'd be a footnote.
It was not a footnote, but it was a reference to another article that would give you more understanding.
This isn't like Gibbon's dirty footnotes in Latin.
No, but it was subversive in that he would get his dissident opinions. And he was sort of the original free thinker. Anyway, I've enjoyed that, but I'm only a little bit into it, so I'll report on that next week. So we'll have a little book club here. Okay,
that would be good. If people are pro book club,
17th century and 18th century only.
Yeah, I'm like the worst. Book
I tried a book club. I didn't read the book.
I know. Well, if you read the book, you just
don't really want to hear what they're saying, and
it's like writing a book report.
Or like being
book reports killed my love of a book
report. Yeah.
Like you read Pride
but now
and
people
Prejudice,
apparently
and you have to write about it. It's like that just killed it for me. But then I'm not academic, so
now people have article clubs.
What? Oh. as our attention span diminishes.
Right. Now we'll have like podcast clubs. Tweet clubs. You can review
tweet clubs. I think Instagram clubs. Also we want to welcome Ella Ryder here.
Hello,
Ella. This is your first season full time.
Yeah,
you're representing your generation. What do we call you again? Alphabet letter are you again?
I'm right in between millennial and Gen Z, I think.
So does that make you an X? No, we're X. Hang on. Z.
I'm right. I'm on the last year of, sometimes I read I'm on the last year of millennial, and sometimes I read I'm on the first year of the next generation. So
okay, well you can speak for both. That's fine. You can cover both of them.
I'm friends with people of both generations.
We have some great guests coming up this season. We've got Candace Bushnell.
Sex in the City lady.
Coming into the studio. We're going to have to really up our cocktail.
And our shoes.
And our toilettes and our outfits. Oh, my God. We're going to have to. But anyway, she's coming into the studio next week.
She wrote the screenplays, or did she write the original?
Her column, Sex in the City, used to run in the New York Observer in the 80s. And I remember reading it and loving it. And now she's...
And she was Sarah Jessica Parker?
I think so. Yeah.
And who was Mr. Big? We have to ask.
Oh, I think that's sort of known. But we'll find out. But yeah, it was based on someone real. And then she's written a new book called "Is There
Is there still Sex in the City?
Is there still Sex and it's about 50-somethings and turning 60. And I've just read it. You were reading about Diderot. I was reading this, and it's incredibly entertaining, but I got quite depressed.
The dating scene for the 50-somethings?
Yeah,
my God.
It was pretty, and she talks about middle-aged female madness, and it's not as glamorous as...
Is there anything about wine moms?
No, nothing about wine moms, although that was a slur that we were called.
We get that occasionally.
Ella, wasn't there a tweet that called us
decadent wine moms? We
no,
didn't
they
care.
just no. There was.
I own it.
Yes, it was white feminist, and then the other one was wine moms, right?
Yeah, or it was
white wine feminist.
Yeah, I think wine moms is synonymous with a kind of elite white.
And we can't even be arm candy to millionaires anymore. Did you read well, we're too old for that anyway. But even if we'd wanted to be when we were dolly birds 100 years ago, you can't just marry a rich guy anymore and because you're gorgeous. They want PhDs and a fortune.
And like bombshell.
You have to be a 10
you're
plus.
referring. So we collected a whole bunch of articles in the summer, and we pelted them at Ella, who very kindly compiled them. And we're just, in a minute, we're just going to try work our way through them because some of them are pretty funny. But yeah, it says
the trophy wife is dead.
It's from Tatler magazine in England,
which is very Tony, no?
Yes, very, very, very. It says Tatler claims the super rich want a spouse who's a power player in her own right, like Meghan Markle or Amal Clooney, but she must still be extremely hot.
You know, I once read an article about women who is a small subset of women with IQs, just astronomically high IQs, like the extreme high end of the ability distribution. So they're geniuses, and they're gorgeous. They are 10s. Now, what happens to them?
What happens to them?
They marry super rich men, have a lot of kids, and they pursue their interests, but they don't go. You don't even see them. They're invisible to the world. They just seem to go off and do whatever they want to do.
Well, I thought one of the things about marrying a super rich man, and I don't claim to be an expert on this in any kind, but previously, now maybe this is what Tatler is telling us, is that yes, they want a super hot woman. They want her to be smart, like
and funny and
no,
amusing.
but the smartness, like in like the best personal assistant you've ever had, because
Right.
she has to manage multiple homes, has to look beautiful at the charity balls, has to manage. I mean, it's running a corporation.
And she's going to be the mother of your children,
And
so
she's
you
gonna
want
be the mother
good
of your
genes.
children, or maybe unless it's the second wife, in which case,
Well, that'll be mother of little,
she's the mother that your children hate. But or somebody I knew once got divorced and was very reluctant. This is a very successful man, not super rich, but very, very successful. And when his friends would ask, why don't you remarry? And he goes, why do I want to give another house to a woman I hate?
I was Johnny Carson.
Wasn't John.
No? Okay.
The thing about this article is, I remember in the 80s, this article was printed in the 80s. Do you remember the era of Carolyn Rome and even the first Mrs. Trump? That Carolyn Rome was the designer and she married Henry Kravis, I believe. They divorced. But it was all about this. You can't just show up to parties with a bimbo. She's got to be this very accomplished, attractive woman. So this is a bit of plus ça change.
I saw that with Jackie Kennedy. Remember, she was just, if you see the early Jackie Kennedy, I just want to be the best wife I can. And then by the time she met Aristotle Onassis, she had to be an editor. She had a job. You had to have a job. It was no longer... It was just non-you.
I thought she became an editor because she wanted, like that.
Oh, no. She was very smart. And she was one of those extraordinary women. She had she was very smart and educated and just cultivated woman. But it there was also social pressure that you should be employed, and she got a job.
Well, when you look at the Amal Clooney, and don't get me started on Meghan Markle, because I follow as a Canadian.
I just don't see her in the same
road.
category. To me, Amal Clooney is completely, overwhelmingly
Kind of a goddess.
And brilliant, and one of those women that's in that category. But Meghan Markle just seems, I don't say this in a mean way, I say this respectfully, but isn't she a little bit of an airhead?
I don't think she's an airhead. I think she went into the royal family thinking as a celebrity and not as a member of the royal family. Like, if like me, you grew up with in the Commonwealth, no, you understand that the royal family, it's not supposed to be glamorous. It's not supposed to be glittering, because that will lead to the revolution.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't be having so good a time, and especially extravagantly. And, you're supposed to turn up, you're supposed to do good works and keep all that stuff about your fabulous castles, which, by the way, like when you look at how the Queen actually lives, like eating out of Tupperware at the breakfast table. It's a little dowdy. It's dowdy, and it's supposed to be dowdy.
And it should be.
And it's all about duty and service, because if it's not that,
then why do we have you?
Why do we have you? And so I think Meghan Markle has come into this thinking, I can now be Amal Clooney. I have married a celebrity. We're going to do great works, and we're going to get fabulous credit for them. But anyway, so I think that's.
Well, now
I think she could single-handedly end the monarchy. I think she's on her way to doing that. But to go back to the original article, even Amal Clooney. I mean, this is the thing about marrying these super rich men is, in the end, you adapt to their life. So, I mean, she still does her human rights things, and it's not a hardship necessarily, but you're adapting to them, and that's in the end.
Fine with a lot of women.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's maybe
I'm not criticizing it. Hey, put it out there. I'm a really good organizer. Okay.
And the thing is, these women have a good life, but here's the thing. I think these marriages are now going to be. Maybe this is. I think this is a positive thing of the Me Too witch hunts. Is that men are going to be afraid?
You just call it the Me Too witch hunt.
The witch hunt part of it.
Okay.
The Me Too, the positive thing. I'm saying
warlock hunt. Let's please be specific.
The warlock hunt. Don't you think that men are going to be more and more afraid of having affairs and leaving their wives? So what happened? A lot of marriages were destroyed because. That women would throw themselves at these rich, attractive men. And now the men are going to be nervous about it because they can be sued and brought up on charges.
You're speaking of it as if employment opportunities have been reduced.
Well, kind of for women.
for those kind of harlots that hurl themselves at married men.
Those hussies.
Well, I think the point of Me Too was that it was like these very successful men were often the problem because they felt very entitled and they could just have.
I know, but they can't do it anymore.
Well,
on the other hand, they seem to always do what they want. So.
I don't see Jeff Bezos suffering. He was all over the Mediterranean with his love, Lauren Sanchez, kissing in Saint-Tropez. I guess you don't read the Daily Mail like I do.
I do not. I only read. Not the Tatler, but
the Tatler's great. And Hello Magazine is really, I think, my all-time favorite.
Hello Magazine, but you can't get it. You used to be able to get it at Union
Airport.
Station.
And the Union Station right now.
And it's gone.
That's one of the great. You can get it online though. Okay, so Candace, we're also seeing we're going to LA this week. By the time you hear this, we will have been back from LA. Christina will have been on Bill Maher. Mm-hmm. And we will have interviewed Caitlin Flanagan in LA.
What could be greater? I mean, I'm so excited to see her.
She's been getting in a little bit of, I guess not flack, but she was talking about Me Too and how it can't just become a movement for people who had bad dates. And that's what I think she said on NPR most recently.
Yes.
And it was in reaction to another one of our guests coming up in a couple of weeks is Emily Yoffe, who wrote this article.
And if you haven't read it, stop. Well, finish the podcast and then go and look at Reason Magazine. It's an article called I'm Radioactive. And it's about a journalist. I think his name was Jonathan Kamen. And he's probably, as she says, the least famous person, to suffer a Me Too annihilation. And now it's moved not to taking out and correctly stopping men who are predators, powerful men. He wasn't powerful, and he wasn't a predator. He had a couple of dates, and they decided to call him out for sex that was consensual, but he didn't call them, and they weren't happy afterwards. There was some miscommunication. No one is saying that he raped them. They're just thinking, he didn't. They felt that he didn't behave well, but he wasn't their boss. This was just out in the everyday relationships, and he lost his job. He lost his life. He thinks he's like living in his parents' basement. And
this was in Reason, correct?
This was in Reason.
Yeah. So we'll and Emily got then a lot of backlash, and we'll talk to her about that for just even questioning the fact that you should question.
Well, I met him, and I'm just. It's a distressing story. It's just what we do to one another, and when she told his story, I thought people would feel sorry, and many did, but not. A whole group of women supported the accusers and act as though, by calling out this guy who's just a journalist, that he's as guilty as Harvey Weinstein or something. And the whole thing is very, very dismaying to me.
Well, let's pause right there just for a second for this wonderful message from our sponsors. Christina, I think you knew at one point I tried to run an online business, and one of the things that defeated me was having to keep track of all the finances. It was a nightmare, but there's now Netsuite, which keeps everything together and helps you really organize your business systems.
Because if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business.
But the problem that growing businesses have, and especially if you're like me, I was a startup, so you're doing it all on your own, is these hodgepodge of business systems. With NetSuite by Oracle, it's a business management software that handles every aspect of your business in an easy-to-use cloud platform, giving you the visibility and control you need to grow.
And with NetSuite, you save money, time, unheeded headaches.
Yes.
You can avoid those by managing sales, finance, accounting, orders, and HR instantly right from your desktop or phone.
And that's why NetSuite is the world's #1 cloud business system.
And right now, NetSuite is offering you valuable insights with a free guide, 7 key strategies to grow your profits at netsuite.com/femsplain.
That's netsuite.com/femsplain to download your free guide, 7 key strategies to grow your profits.
netsuite.com/femsplain.
Everybody has sent their kids off to college who are going to college by now, and they probably sent them off with really cheap bedding. And I think you should send kids off with really nice bedding that's going to last, that's going to go the distance of 4 years.
And even if you're not sending kids off and you're getting a new apartment, or you've just had your sheets for 30 years, get rid of them.
And get Brooklinen.
Yes.
Brooklinen. We love our Brooklinen sheets, and you should share them. Or not share the sheets, but give them to other people. They're hotel-quality sheets that don't cost an arm and a leg.
Brooklinen sheets have been named the winner of the Best of Online Bedding category by Good Housekeeping. And they have 35,000 plus 5-star reviews, more than any other online bed company. That's 500,000 happy sleepers and still counting.
Brooklinen was the first DTC bedding company, meaning they work directly with manufacturers and directly with customers. So thus, no middlemen, no one sleeping between you two, just a great product and service.
Now, my Brooklinen sheets are the most comfortable I've ever had, and their towels have turned my bathroom into a spa. So I can't recommend them more. I mean, for friends, for family, and just for treating yourself to the upgrade you deserve.
And right now, you can get 10% off and free shipping when you use promo code FEMSPLAIN at brooklinen.com. So the only way to get 10% off and free shipping is to use promo code FEMSPLAIN at brooklinen.com. That's BROOKLINEN.com. Promo code FEMSPLAIN. Best sheets ever. You and I caught up because of our my kids, telling us to watch the new Dave Chappelle Sticks and Stones special. And I have to admit, when you came over to watch it, it was after dinner, and
she went to sleep
almost instantly.
Not because, and that doesn't mean she could be at a dinner party.
Okay,
with Samuel Johnson and Edmund Burke and the wittiest people, and she would go to sleep.
I know. It's a kind of weird. I call it like wine narcolepsy. If I have wine, it's just like, and it's like past 9 o'clock. But anyway, I did watch it the next day.
Oh, you did?
In the afternoon, and we have Ella here because if I urge people to watch it, because it's probably as politically incorrect as a comedy special
can be
given today's standards. He defended Louis C.K.,
Michael Jackson, but not really.
Well, yes, really,
Louis C.K.,
but not Michael
really
Jackson.
Michael Jackson,
sort of.
And he's very, talk about intelligent. He is brilliant. I think his father is a data scientist.
Yeah, he was a statistician.
Right. And so he has that analytic ability and humor, and he's also just funny. Just see him walk around makes me laugh.
Well, but the Gen Zers are, I'm gathering, very up in arms.
Only the reporters,
right? Ella, you watched it too.
I did watch it.
What did you think?
I thought it was really good. But yeah, no, he definitely attacks everyone, and including the audience.
Opportunity offender.
Yeah,
including his wife, his kids.
Well,
every group. White people don't come off well. I mean, he doesn't. Yeah. He's funny,
but he talked about sort of the every time he was about to make a joke about like the fear of the canceling culture, and then he did this very funny sketch about what he called the alphabet people.
Yes.
And
the L's, the B's, the G's, the T's. And anyway, but the L's don't really like the G's don't really like the L's. Like, why are you wearing that?
But you weren't. I mean, I've talked to other young people, and they've said like, no, he was kind of saying the things we really think, but we can't say out loud.
Yeah, no, I'm not easily offended, so I thought it was really funny.
Who would have thought that like this liberal reporter and this very woke reporter at Slate would have no sense of humor? What a surprise! And she was just, he's just punching down, and that's so wrong. No, I think he's punching up. He's punching up at these hypersensitive journalists and sort of upper middle class privileged people, and everybody else finds it funny. And people differ on how funny they find it. I've followed him for a long time, and I think he's always funny, and he has been even funnier. But I laughed a lot.
Yeah, and I think there's a line where he talks about when I make fun of people, it's because I see myself in them and I can relate to them.
Didn't you feel that?
Yeah.
I also thought that was just cover.
I think it's true.
He does. He lives in rural Ohio, and like he lives amongst. Like you talked about the opioid crisis. He lives amongst people who are
and guns.
Dying. Yeah, and guns. Yeah, that was
very funny about guns.
And he says, "You want gun control? All you have to do is tell all black people, arm yourself, go out,
register.
Try to buy gun, everybody register." And then they're going to want to
stop that.
Have some gun control.
No, that was very, very good. All right. So any other, let's just look at our little pile here of stories. It wasn't a summer of love for the millennials. According to a study done by Match.com, I'm going to just read the highlights. 5,000 young American adults were quizzed for the Singles in America study. A third of Generation Y. Who's Generation Y?
Don't ask.
It's part of the alphabet generation.
Yeah.
A third of Generation Y are reluctantly single because they can't afford to date.
They're the why am I here?
Why am
Why?
I here? A quarter of all respondents would have intercourse with a human-like machine, but acknowledge this would still be classed as cheating
Oh, God.
their partners.
What's going on with this Generation Y?
Hang on, let me just see if there are any more. Oh, yeah, okay. According to the data, financial instability is hampering their ability to find the one because it's forcing them to budget instead. Match also did a separate study which said the average single American spends about $60 per month on dating, but that's mostly men who fork out most of the costs. And let me just see any other highlights. Oh, and yes, and the last one was the new research also found that the Me Too movement has caused more than half of all men to act differently with women, becoming more reserved and distant. You guys, man.
Well,
Do you have any reaction to that, Ella? I mean,
And actually, I have a friend who's on some dating apps, and he's trying to, really meet someone he can settle down with. And he said, he's like, I have to come up with a whole new budget for dates because these first dates are so expensive. And he's like, I have to go places, and
where are you going?
He
just a restaurant.
like a
not
restaurant,
horrible one.
just
You don't
drinks.
want to go
Yeah. Well, because he doesn't want to go to a cheap place and have her think that he doesn't think it's worth, forking out all the money. He doesn't want to go to a place too expensive because he's worried it'll creep her out because he'll think it's too serious too quickly. So it's just kind of, he's...
Can't you just walk across the Brooklyn Bridge and have an ice cream cone?
Candy corn.
Yeah.
Candy corn?
Yeah.
It is, well, a sort of spoiler alert for the Candace Bushnell interview, because she has this very funny scene of her talking to a group of, I guess, younger even than you, Ella. And what was disturbing, and these are New York kids, I mean, they're all on Tinder, and they're like 17.
I thought you were going to say they're all on like ADHD medication.
Well, they're on that too, obviously.
Anti-anxiety
And
drugs.
I'm sure they all have therapists. But no, but they said, well, what was dating like in your time before there were apps? And she said, well, you'd meet someone, they'd get your number, you talk on the phone a couple times, and then, you might go out for a drink, or you might just go for a walk in the park or something. And one of the girls said, that sounds like the most romantic thing I've ever heard.
Oh, how sad.
Like, you can't just do nothing. Everything has to be a...
Oh, yeah. No,
Can I
there's...
just go for a coffee? Like, what would happen?
I mean,
why don't we just
you can go for coffee. The problem is that everyone's super opinionated and everyone has very different opinions. So some people might say, oh, you can't go on a coffee, that's too businessy. And then they, that's not intimate enough. Other people are saying, like, oh, you have to have alcohol to help loosen up. Because there is no, like, calling and talking and
So you just...
non-texting with people.
It's only texting.
Yeah, there's maybe, I mean, especially on an app, maybe you have a week of messages, but then, the whole point is a dating app, so you have to ask them out pretty quickly, and then you go on your date, and
then the date has to be something. I mean, the rules, back in my day, the rules were, according to the men, of my data research on this, is you would ask a girl out for lunch. I don't know if that's still true, because lunch always had a final ending. It couldn't lead like to dinner. Like you didn't have that sort of awkward evening.
I never
problem.
remember an invitation to lunch.
No, you didn't date David Frum.
Oh.
But I thought that was like a thing. You go to lunch first.
I don't remember anybody dating. You just kind of hung out together and then you were together, like at Woodstock.
I just go to Woodstock. No, I remember, being called by my now husband, but he
was Alex B. Keaton, and he was playing by a different rule book. He had
strong ideas. He's like, we went out to lunch, and then that, went well, and then he called me, and then we went out to dinner. But it was very,
And then the third date, he cooked dinner.
That's right.
Did he?
You can listen to that. I think
Okay,
it's
we've talked
season
about that in
one.
season one.
But yeah, well, here, millennials.
Instead of the millennials, can we just go?
No, I want to help them. I have one.
Oh, okay. Give them some
great advice. I found this. The source is something called Only in Boston, which did the average price of a date in the U.S. By state. So as you can imagine, the highest price date is in New York, where the average is, I don't know how they get this, but here I'll just present it as a fact, is $297.27.
Well, that's a good date.
What are they doing?
A dinner.
That's a nice dinner.
Drinks. I mean, if a cocktail would be like $20 at a restaurant.
Oh, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
it was
if you have
$20 in my
tip and you have tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So millennials.
But what about another state? I mean, it can't be that much in South Dakota.
The cheapest date.
Okay.
In all of the United States, and forgive me, South Dakota, for calling
it
it
is South
America's cheapest date. The average date there is $38.27. Maybe you go to the
Applebee's or TGIF Fridays.
California is very close, $226.35. But look, Georgia. Oh, I guess they've got Atlanta is $121. That seems a little.
I don't
overpriced.
believe this. These are older people. I mean, kids.
No, I don't think so.
Really?
Well, this is why they're saying they're going broke. They can't. But it's always been true, especially in the era. This predates both you and me, where people got engaged at age 20. Nobody had money,
right,
for dates. Right? Like you didn't.
And those restaurants weren't there. I was thinking the other day when I was growing up, like there were no restaurants in L.A. There was like a few fancy restaurants you could go to once in a very rare occasion.
And they were always French or something.
Yeah. They had.
That was true in Toronto, too.
A couple of French restaurants. And Scandia, I don't know what that was, Swedish or something. Other than that, there was nothing. And then.
Go to the drive-in.
Yeah, that was fun. Or just walking around or going to the beach.
The thing, right?
We went to the beach.
You didn't have, you weren't all glued to your phones, and you, I think you walked around a lot, and you maybe got a soda or something, and
at the soda fountain.
and one of the stories my late father-in-law told of dating my husband's mother, Barbara. He was a little bit older. He was in his, I forget, but mid-20s, maybe 26, 27. She was 19 or 20. And they went out on a date, and then their second date was to a friend's of his party. They were having some sort of celebration, maybe a birthday. And she bought a chocolate orange, like a chocolate that looked like an orange, and the little sections came out in little chocolate pieces. And she had no idea who these people were, but she thought, well, this is a good gift. He was so impressed at this originality and yet cleverness of this chocolate orange.
Well, he was right. She was very original.
And then he decided, like, I think by, as they did back then, but by date 3 or 4 is very, very serious.
Well, these are the parents that created David Frum. I would expect nothing less.
But I think that it was a common thing, like maybe just these, it starts now in these high schools. We've talked about this before, like, if you're going to ask somebody out for prom, you've got to have this. I don't know, the Radio City Rockettes come out, dance and hold up signs. It's become insane.
Everything is formalized, and then
it's all for Instagram, and then you just can't go out on a walk and produce a chocolate orange.
My mother remembers meeting my father, and they were at, I think it was Fremont High in Los Angeles, and he had a car. It was an old car, like a Model T or some kind of comical old car. But nobody else had one, and they wanted to go to the beach. And he invited my mother. And she didn't really want to go on a date with him. She wanted to go to the beach. And she said, sure. And then she came with 6 friends. And they all piled in.
It was beach blanket bingo.
Yeah, and this is a long, this would have been in the early 40s. And they went off, and it was just kids, and they were so innocent. And then, they eventually I don't even know how they fell, he found out that she actually did like him. But it really wasn't until he went off to the war and he kissed her. And they were madly in love after that, but he was gone. And then that to live through that period. And she and my father, I was talking about this to someone else last night. World War II, going through that, you would think it would be the worst time in people's lives because she never knew if she'd see him and would wait for letters, all this. And both my mother and father said they look back, it was the most exciting time of their lives.
Yeah, would have been, I mean,
Horrible.
Horror aside, but if you kind of went through it and survived,
then it had a
if
happy
you were
ending.
American too,
Of course.
especially
no,
if you were
Europeans,
American.
no, because
you didn't go through hunger, you didn't go.
No, but every day was.
But you'd send off your airmen,
and you were
you'd
sending
fly
off your airmen, and she was
wait for letters,
working and waiting for letters, and
right. No, but
it was this.
we don't want that again. Though.
But here's the thing: it was a much more difficult time,
right?
Stressful, but there was romance and the love songs from that era, and my parents would play them, and they're beautiful.
I do wonder about love songs today. That even in the 70s, there that whole era of folk songs, and you listen to them, and they're all this, especially men expressing love for women. And I don't know. I sort of.
What are the songs today?
I listen to my 17-year-old daughter's songs when it's not rap, which I make her take off the radio when we're playing, but when we're driving. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of those. You know, I guess maybe in country music, but
I mean, I'm thinking Bruno Mars would be maybe the closest of like, let's get married like right now. I love you so much. But other than that, like other popular, especially the songs recorded by female artists, I think tend to emphasize, I don't actually like you that much.
And independence.
Yeah,
I don't need you.
I don't need you, and this is just fun. It's not romantic at all.
Yeah.
There's a lot of heartbreak. Like I'm thinking, like early Taylor Swift would have been like, "I like you, but you don't actually notice me."
Yeah.
But I'm not. I don't know if there's any grand, like
Love ballads.
Yeah, like an Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong kind of.
That's all the things you are.
Yeah.
Beautiful love. Listen to Ella Fitzgerald singing all the things you are.
Yeah.
We don't have that. Well, there you have it.
Well, okay. Well, moving on. This Ella, I'm going to blame you for this story because
It was this.
speaking of the opposite of romance.
Oh yeah.
Okay, when you first sent it to me, I just saw the headline. I mean, I even glanced. I even didn't read the whole headline. It was just
What the
that
hell is
women
it?
women in India
Oh,
are having 4 husbands because of a wife shortage, and I have to make all my jokes up top because it's such a horrific story. I'll just look incredibly. I'll look
you thought
Dave
you
Chappelle.
go, girl. Polyamory. Now the women are in charge.
The women in charge. But then I was trying to apply that to North American women and okay, how many sets of keys do I have to find? Did you check the middle of the refrigerator when you open the door? It's right there, I swear. I thought, and maybe they have their husbands, whenever they want them, whatever. No shortage of people to, screw in light bulbs and take out the garbage. And not that that's what husbands are for, but it helps. And then it turns out to be this really bad story. Ellie, you just describe it because it's
Kind of a downer.
it's kind
It's
of
dark.
a downer. It's dark, but
It is dark.
horrific.
Yeah, so I stumbled across it this morning, and there's, even though it's illegal in India, there are a lot of sex selective abortions where couples will find out the gender of the baby, they realize the baby's female, and they will abort the baby, or they give the baby up for adoption, and they don't want to raise daughters. And so there's this province in India where apparently there's a large shortage of marriageable women, and so families are pooling their resources. They're getting dowries, and then they're offering dowries to the families of women in other provinces. And when the women come, they think they're only going to marry one of the brothers, and actually they're forced to marry, well, they're officially married to one man, but they're forced to act as the wife to all of the brothers because they can't afford dowries for wives for every one of their sons.
Yes, and I'm reading from the story. It says, the women's condition in these marriages is one of extreme vulnerability and insecurity. Their treatment is like that of a slave, living under the real threat of rape, which as per law is not considered a crime when it happens within marriage. I think we're going to see this more and more because isn't this a problem
In China.
And I think throughout Africa, you've got these large populations of young men. There's not a lot of employment. This is part of the migration issue. And yes, suddenly polyandry is
Not as fun as it used to be.
Yeah, and yeah, India seems to have at least this part of India seems to have a lot of other problems, and the article references where the wives' family obviously do not want their daughters to be in this situation. They entered the situation hoping that their daughter would have a more financially stable life, and I guess in some senses she does. But when they go to the police, apparently you have to pay the police to investigate these crimes, and they can't afford to pay the police, so no one investigates it.
And stipulate this is the kind of story and kind of practice that's in rural areas.
Yes, this is not
the norm.
This is not Mumbai. Like this is not. Yeah,
Calcutta. It's very poor people that are in.
Yeah.
Just in these practices.
It doesn't seem ideal for anyone. Like not even the husbands. I mean, like it doesn't. This doesn't seem like a good option for anyone. But especially for the wives who seem to be completely unaware until they get married that this is what's going to happen to them.
Well, I remember years ago, Christina. I think you'll remember this when we were working together. The National Women's Organization came out pro-polygamy. Do you remember that?
Polygamy?
Polygamy, multiple wives. They used Utah, where of course is illegal, but they used it as an example of where it was empowering for women.
Oh, because you could have all these sister wives and
and just not have so much domestic labor or something. And they were immediately, of course, censored for this. But it really there was a lot of feminist discussion of how polygamy could be good for women. I remember raising this. We had a beloved builder from Virginia, and one day I was talking to him, and he said, we were talking about, for some reason, we were talking about polygamy, and I think as it related to Islam, and he said, yeah, polygamy seems like a good idea when you're 22. Not so good idea when you're 55. The thought of having 5 wives to nag him just seemed, beyond
exhausting.
Exhausting. And as you point out, Christina, these are the issues that
put most of our problems in perspective. Is we have the first world problems, like
and as you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. We have first world problems because we live in
someone
the first
tweeted
world.
today they're very upset that if you subscribe to the Wall Street Journal or to some other, and they will ask you, do you want to stay subscribed? And you say yes. And so then you go back to it and you have to sign in every time. And everybody on the internet was saying, yeah, that happens. That's such a bummer. And then I thought, okay, maybe that's not the most serious problem in the world, but it's still a problem.
I think it was Stephen Colbert or some comedian who said,
"Oh, the Wi-Fi wasn't working on the airplane."
Oh yeah, that was a comedian, right? Yeah. I think that was Louis C.K.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Cannot say his name. Canceled.
No, he said we're in the air, we're flying.
No,
we're
on the boat.
Cities and records.
I was out in some obscure part of Newfoundland. And my Wi-Fi wasn't working, and I was just indignant.
It's enraging.
And I wanted to send a note to the captain.
Oh, and then they charge you an arm and a leg.
Well, they charged me an arm and a leg, so I kind of
then
got
it
a
didn't
point.
work.
It did not work,
Right.
and I wanted to watch Succession.
Yeah, obviously.
And I couldn't, so we've got our problems too.
Well, actually, David has my husband David has a great phrase about this. He said, poor Wi-Fi is worse than no Wi-Fi.
And it's
true,
a
actually.
fundamental human rights issue. And I think
You're then like a monkey, just like pressing your keys
and you don't
refreshing.
give up, and you keep. And once in a
Why
while,
is this not working?
so I keep pressing, and then once in a while it would work,
And then it would,
and then it would be gone, and it was. I think Amnesty International is going to investigate it. It's kind of mental torture.
Well, I can't remember which Canadian, but I think it was Stephen Colbert who says, like, press 1 for English, press dos por español. He's like, why are you wasting my time? It's like, that extra second. But yeah. All right. Well, Ella, before we wind up here and get into the new season, which we're very excited to launch, we had some listeners who had written into us, and we weren't able to answer them, if I'm correct. Do we have a little listener feedback?
We do. So we have some listener feedback from a woman named Lana. She says, I want to object to your conclusion that the parent who wrote in that he regrets having children must need psychiatric help.
Did we say that?
Did I say that?
Probably.
It might have, I think
it was Christina.
No, it wasn't me. I didn't say it. I didn't even think it. Maybe I thought it.
Well, she continues, it is true that I loathe my kids most when I'm depressed, but the reason I'm depressed is entirely due to their existence. I've long held that having kids is for people who watch a lot of TV already, but for people who like to go out and do things, especially at a high level, kids are a serious drag. I know the day will come when my youngest doesn't scream in a life jacket, when he can hike several miles instead of being carried, and when I'll be physically healed from gestational injuries. And I know that even then I won't be shooting rapids, backpacking up mountains, or winning jiu-jitsu tournaments. This is a trade-off I made and have to live with, and I've come to terms with that. But I still wonder, often, if it was a trade-off that I should have made.
Oh, my goodness.
Ouch.
She's depressed.
Yeah.
And it will pass. And here's the thing. My kids are all grown up, and their babyhood and not being able to go backpack, it lasted a second. And then, it goes so fast.
Well, I remember having my first child, our eldest daughter, who's now 28, and we lived in New York at that time. And I remember pushing her a stroller, and having been, and she was a good baby. Like, she wasn't even there was
trouble.
No trouble at all. But
that came later.
Yeah, that came.
Kidding, Mandy.
But especially if you're a new mother and you're up so early, and then it's relentless because there's not a lot you can do with a 3, 4, 5 months old except when they sleep. You cradle them, you love them, you chat with them, and you do your stuff while they sit in their chair. But it could be exhausting.
And if they're tired and they want to get up, you can't argue with them.
You can't argue with them. So I remember pushing her down, a New York street, and all these. She had very bright strawberry hair. She was, without quite being a ginger, she had this wonderful shock of hair, and these lovely old ladies stop and go, "Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful! I love her hair. It goes so fast." And I'm thinking, not effing fast enough. I'm going to die. I'm so tired. And I was very happy mother, but I get that. I get the sense of, a friend of mine wrote after becoming a new father, he said, it's not just that you can't go out for coffee. You can't even pop out for coffee. Like, you can't pop out anymore. And it's true.
And when they're very little, you are a slave.
But
because you have to watch them. You are a lifeguard. Because a 1.5-year-old, they can walk, but they have no inhibition about putting, everything into their mouths and touch. It's just exhausting.
But that's true. But then we tend to focus on that negative. And yet the thing that the children teach you, which is the most amazing thing, is that kind of bath of fire of selflessness. It's
and
like
loving someone more than you love yourself.
Into the breach or whatever. That once you adjust and you accept it, and then you're living not entirely for yourself. To me, that was liberation.
That's liberating. It's
oh my
exhausting
God.
to live just for yourself.
To think about yourself all the time. God, I bore myself.
All those weekends, you have to make plans. And with kids, the plans kind of come and go.
Well, and that's the thing. And then they get older and older. And then there's that magical time, I think, between age 5 or 6 to 12 where they think you're God and everything you do is great. That changes, of course.
And it's hard if you have one because you're the playmate. If you have 2, they play together, but you're the referee, so that's hard. Yeah. But if you have 3, they sort of, and 4, it's even easier.
But then it's a rhythm and it's a whole thing. But I feel I think you're right. I mean, this person, Lana, I'm sorry, you are depressed, but it sounds like you're also having a hard time adjusting to this new life that if you could look down 15 years from now.
Not even 5 years. Those kids will be encouraging her to go out.
Right, and then they become kayaking. Very useful.
And they'll fix the kayak. I mean,
they'll fix the kayak. They'll help you with your internet. They'll figure it out. No,
and they'll make you laugh and they'll make you happy. And then you don't even feel it's the one way I find to conquer old age. Because it happens to the best of us. But you've got these young people out there having adventures, and it extends
as you say, they become your greatest friends, companions.
Yeah.
I ask all my children now for advice.
Absolutely.
They've grown into really interesting, fascinating people, and also there's no one like them. You'll never have a friend like this. It's family. You'll never have anyone as close to you,
and who will be there forever, and you'll be there for them. And but I sympathize because it can be very hard, and you don't have a lot. You're not getting enough sleep, clearly, and I want you to be happier, dear, because you will love these children. But it's all right. It's all right. She could just be having a bad day. Yeah. I'm sure we've all had days where.
You stop thinking about the things you could be doing if you didn't have children.
Do you know how many people are so desperate? So here's the thing to think.
The world
people who are desperate to have children and who would give their right arm.
Yeah, but that doesn't help someone who's depressed. That's like telling a depressed person, look at all you have. You should be happy.
No, that would help me to think. It does help people to count their blessings. And it's a blessing to be able to have healthy children.
It's true. That's all true. But I sympathize and I think that to start looking at some of the gifts they're bringing you is helpful and the things that you will be able to introduce to them. So if they suck right now at kayaking, they won't suck a few years from now, and they'll be in the kayak with you going, Mommy, look at this. Oh, Mommy, look at the bugs on the water. And you'll just be melting because they're seeing and they're enjoying everything 9,000 more times than you were. So It's kind of magical. Anyway, good luck, Lana. Stay in touch. Let us know how you're doing.
Yes.
So, Ella, anyone else who wrote to us? And by the way, we encourage you to write to us.
Yeah, we did have someone write into us about the phenomenon of purse spreading.
Purse spreading.
So it's inspired from the definition of manspreading.
Oh, the bag ladies.
Yes.
Oh.
But purse spreading is the practice whereby a woman, especially when traveling on public transport, adopts a sitting position in which adjacent seats are exploited for purse accommodation.
I did it the other day.
Oh, you are a
at Logan Airport.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone sort of looked disapprovingly at my bag, and I took it. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Well, this action is apparently sexist because it targets mostly men by excluding them from the adjacent seat just for being a man.
To be fair,
women,
it discriminates against other women too who aren't purse spreaders.
Are you a purse
And sometimes
spreader?
you're saving it for a friend.
No, I know. Actually, this goes to my deep Canadianism. I'm so law-abiding on like public transport, and like I'll keep my purse on my lap.
Occupy as little space.
No,
I don't. I do it when I think no one's around, and no one was around, and then suddenly the situation changed, and I was mortified. But I have been guilty of.
Well, I think I can see upside down a photo that this listener sent us, and it is, that woman is. Although, look, to be fair, the car is empty. She's got her big bag next to her, but the seats across are empty.
I want to.
All right, but
investigate.
I think this is more. I think instead of this is a problem we make everything sexist one way or the other. This is just etiquette. This is just common decency.
Etiquette, but give people a break.
She says as the guilty person.
Well, I'm guilty, but that woman, there's nobody around. Why can't she has a heavy bag, and a guy, he has to sit. He's a big dude. Let him man spread. I don't care. They can't. I mean,
Do
why?
if it's rush hour?
Rush hour? I think they should give me their seat.
Oh, that's so sexist.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well.
no, that doesn't happen anymore.
It
even
does.
If you're pregnant.
Nah, that's true. I've heard that.
And then if they offer it to you, then you feel,
I feel
like, I'm not old.
I like.
Hey, what do you think? What are you thinking?
I know. Like, I'm always offended at if I go to Whole Foods and I go shopping and then they say, "Do you need help with your bags getting out?"
Well, they say that to everybody.
No, they say it to me. They didn't used to say it. And I say, "No, I can handle it very well, thank you."
You say with an ice pack on your shoulder.
That's true.
You have a bad shoulder.
There was a research assistant who just did the same thing. She got yelled at by a woman with a cane because she offered her chair, and she's like, "I'm not old." She's like, "But you have a." She didn't say you have a cane, but she was thinking you have a
might
cane.
want to sit down.
Yeah, I was trying to be
20
nice.
years old, but
No, well,
injured.
I never scold anybody. I just say, "Oh, no, thank you."
Yeah, what
thinking
is
to
wrong
myself.
with no thank you or thank you for
politely.
offering?
Yeah, and just, scold people. Stop scolding. Who wants to be a hall monitor and a
Can we,
scold?
before we go, can I just say, I almost want to write, I want to do a TED Talk on how my poor Uber rating made me a better person.
Oh, something happened with my Uber rating recently.
Oh, did it go down?
No, it
Been
went up.
mocking-
It went up so high,
So-
they had to change it to
As
allow for
listeners
like
know-
AP classes. I have a grade point average that's
A weighted
higher.
GPA, a weighted Uber score.
Well, as listeners know, I was shocked to find that I didn't have the best Uber rating. And it was brought to my attention by a very friendly driver who was like, "Why is your rating so low?" And so I have endeavored ever since.
I can't stand being at her
I
Uber
know,
because
I
she's
know.
so ingratiating.
I know, I'm
and-
ingratiating, like, "Oh,
Thank
how
you.
are
What
you?
a wonderful ride.
Forget me. How are you?" Anyway, I've been doing this, but I found it has bled into other parts of my life. And that's the positive thing. So, yeah, okay, so I'm obviously cynically, as my children say, Elaine from Seinfeld, like trying to
Yes.
up my Uber ratings. But I have found now that having been told by this, when an algorithm tells you that you're not as wonderful as you thought you were, or regarded or perceived as wonderful as you thought you were, it sort of is, it's a little jarring. And so I find now, I mean, I used to be much more of a smartass, or if somebody was rude to me, I would just like come right back at them. And I am finding I am becoming very zen-like in my interactions. I'm becoming very friendly. I'm becoming very patient. So couldn't have happened to a nicer person, really.
No, I think I try always to be nice, and I've been criticized by someone I won't mention, but my late husband. He was wonderful, but he could be irascible and difficult with
He
people.
could be very irascible.
And he would
to be
say-
fair. He would have a very low Uber rating. No offense to the late Fred.
No, because then he was also like hail fellow, well met, and he'd bond with the drivers. But if somebody wasn't giving him, he could be difficult, and he'd say, "What's wrong with you? You're too, accommodating." And I just said, it's much better just to be accommodating and just get along with people. Not have these blow-ups and just make them your friends. And I think that it's the best way to be.
Well, I thought I was that way, but apparently I wasn't. And my kids said, "Nah, Mom, when I'm very nice when everything
Goes smoothly.
smoothly."
But when the waiter is late with the fish
I know,
sticks-
I'm always nice to waiters. Not least because they could spit in your food.
Yeah.
No, I'm always right. But like when somebody is really doing a bad job, I think it's okay if you're the customer to say something, even just slightly arch,
No.
But now I don't know. I've learned my lesson. So I just want to say thank you, Uber. Although I did notice something, and it's not an article I brought in for this week, but that this algorithm idea is going to start terrorizing us all because just as
That's what the Chinese have for citizenship.
right. No, it's going to start like your rating won't just apply to
Well,
your
I'm
Uber.
implementing it in the podcast.
Oh, no.
And for you.
Uh-oh.
And we're all going to have a score.
No.
And so do the listeners. And everybody has a score. We will
No, but
publish.
you think about it, that's getting pretty creepy, right?
Yeah. It's creepy.
I think there's
and
a
I've
Black
heard
Mirror episode
Google's
about
going to have
this.
some kind of
I
score.
bet there is a Black. I stopped. I loved Black Mirror so much I couldn't watch it because it flipped me out. It gave me nightmares because everything was.
Do you like
true.
Black Mirror?
I do, but I think there's like where people can see what your score is. Like you're scored as a person.
Right.
So like how nice you are to the waiter, you get a score, and then everyone can see like, oh, you were rude to a waiter, like -5 points.
Yeah.
And so people are constantly fighting
that
to
seems
get a
so
high
real
score.
to me that is coming. But anyway, before it does, let's get ready for our new season. Thank our listeners so much. Thank you for all of you who are supporting us on Patreon and the We Gather app. This is why we're
So
back for the
appreciative.
5th season. Thank you to our sponsors. And yeah, let's roll. Let's roll with a great new season.
See you next week.
See you next week. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to the Femsplainers. Keep up with us on Twitter and Facebook at Femsplainers and on Instagram at Femsplainers Podcast. Send questions and comments to contact@femsplainers.com.
A big thanks to Ella Ryder, our research and in-studio production assistant, and to Nat Frum, our audio and video editor. And we're proud to be part of the Ricochet Network and grateful to the American Enterprise Institute for allowing us to record in its studio every week in downtown Washington, D.C.
And miss something? You'll find everything you need at our homepage, femsplainers.com, including links to past episodes, our sponsors, where you can sign up to support us, and even to merch. And please don't forget to like us or give us 5 stars on iTunes.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.